Okay, I'm recording. Okay, so yeah. Hello everyone. Welcome back. It has been quite a while, actually. I think around 2 months since we last had a class. So yeah. So I'm just wondering, do you guys still know like the rules? Like remember like the lessons we gave before? Like, yeah? Okay. Oh, let's see. So can you guys tell me I'm gonna draw two moves. Okay. And then so does the knight move like the one on the left or the one on the right? Yeah, it's the one on the right. Okay. I'm sure you guys got it now. Um, and then let's do a pretty easy made in one puzzle that pretty sure you guys are still good at. Just to quickly refresh before we get into today's topic. Okay. Just, like basic movements of pieces and stuff. Okay. So white to move made in one. I think there's an echo. I will mute. Oh, uh, sorry, what did you say?
Audi 7.
RG7, which one? H or F? H, yeah, Rook HG7, that's correct. That's checkmate. Okay, I think you guys still got this. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about today's topic, which is Rook endgames. Okay, so as we all know, when you get to a position where there's not a lot of pieces on the board, just some random example here, I'm gonna say, like this. This is like an end game. And end games are special. Well, I mean, end games themselves are special because they make up approximately 1/3 of the game. That's why we divide it into three. But not all games reach an end game. And some games are very equal when they reach an end game, but they're decided in the end game. So it is our goal to find out best ways to win end games. I believe last time we were together, we looked at king and pawn end games, which is basically like um, planning ahead. So the essence of king and pawn end games is to plan ahead, but rook end games, on the other hand, is more of a test of strategy and overall positional thinking. So I'm gonna say that rook endgames they make up 50% of endgames. So like endgames with 1 or 2 rooks on the board are very important because they make up 50% of all endgames. There's a lot of pieces you could have in an endgame, but ones with only rook and pawns are 50%. That's a lot of endgames. Okay, let's talk about something first. Here's a position I need to show you guys. So usually when you're playing a rook and pawn in game, you are up a you are either up a rook, sorry, you're either up a pawn or like 2 pawns, etc. Usually there's like a pawn advantage. So our goal is to push this pawn to the end, right? And our job here is to see how do we're on the 7th rank, so we're 1 step away from promotion. I'm going to show you guys the problem right now. So if we were to check black, this is most natural, right? We want to get his king out of the way. Firstly, what would you guys play if black played king to e6? As white, what would you play here?
RE1.
RE1. RE1 is okay, but remember our idea is we want to try and promote this pawn, right? So rook e1, he will just go back and we will repeat the position. Yeah. King e8. Yep, that's right. King e8. And then now black has no way to stop you from promoting this pawn next move. And when you promote it, it'll turn into a queen. And this is a very easily winning position since we know how to mate with king and rook. Okay, good job. So black has calculated this. He knows that he cannot go here, so he's going to step back, okay? But the problem is that if you were to start running your king right now, check, right? And black would just keep giving checks. If you say, oh, I'm just going to step away from my pawn, he'll attack your pawn, you'll be forced to go back to it, and then he'll keep giving checks. So it seems like we've reached an impasse. Neither side can make any good moves. However, there is one winning, I'll say idea. In this case, there's one winning move that you guys could find, and that could win white the game. So yeah. So I'll leave you guys to it. This position is kind of hard, so I'll give you guys a bit more time for this part. What? You said king e8? What? Sorry. Oh, king e8, yes. I think we went over this, right? King e8, black can go rook e2 to check you, and then you just go back and we repeat the position. So white is winning here, but this is not the move. Yeah. Good guess though. RF what?
RFC.
RF6,
Yes.
but this I can just take your rook, right? And then now I think you're losing here. That's not good. I'll tell you guys why. So in this scenario, actually, this is a fun problem. I'll have you guys do this part first. Okay, so in this scenario, you're now playing black, okay? White is trying to promote his pawn and you're trying to stop him. So if white were to go here, what would you do as black now? We'll come back to the other position in a bit. RC8. RC8 does deliver a check to white, except remember white's pawn can capture diagonally like that. So that actually gives white the win. Now white can promote to a queen and win. RE RE2. Okay, I think I heard RE2. RE2, and then what happens if he goes back? King E6. Yeah, okay. And then what happens after King E8? See, the idea behind this one is I'm again shielding my king. Where? RD2. RD2, but then white can just promote, right? If he promotes into a queen, you'll have to trade, and then this is a draw. We don't want this. Instead, it's quite sorry. It's a quite fancier way to win. I'll tell you that RF2. Sorry, there's like an echo with there's an echo with the other phone. I think both of the audios are on, and I hear an echo. RF2 is close, but not quite, because RF2 I can promote, and there's nothing you can do afterward. It's quite close though. Oh, sorry, the rook's on E2. What was the move? RD2. I think we went over RD2 doesn't work because he just promotes, right? Actually, I think there's two ways to win here. I'll show you guys the simple one. Okay. So the simple one is I can go King D6. I think I heard King D6. I think you guys got it. King D6 check with the rook. And then what happens is after King D6, if you go to the F file to one of these two squares, I will take your king. I'll take your pawn, and then I win, right? Because you're just up a rook. If you go back, I will go rook to E7, and now you can't push your pawn, and you are under defended because I have two. You only have one protector. So if you run your king away, I take it, and then I win. Yeah. Yeah. So pretty simple. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Um, yeah. Okay, so the fancier way to win, I'll just show you guys, is if you go rook to g2 or rook to h2. If you go here, white tries to promote, say to a queen, you have rook g8 check mate. If he under promotes to a knight, he saves himself, but his king is on the back rank. So theoretically, this is a win for black. Yeah. But it's kind of harder than the other one, but it is a lot fancier. Okay. Okay. But I digress. This is quite a long detour. Let's go back to our original position. And what would you guys say the best move is for white? So it is not rook f6, because rook f6 just immediately loses. What would you guys say is the best move? Sorry, what?
K-E-8.
K e8? Yeah, but we already said K e8, and then I check you on e2. And then you go back, and then I go back. And then we just repeated the position. So this is not doesn't make any progress. RD6. This is D6. Your rook can't go to D6. Oh. RG1 check. Okay, good idea. But I know your goal is to force Black's king away. But if you try to do this, he can just step inward. And then now your king can't move, so you have to force his king away again. Okay. RG1 is a bit closer, I would say. Not that there's like any metric, but King e7. Okay, King e7, and then I check. What do you move now? RF7 now? Wait, what?
RF7.
No, your king is in check right now. You have to move your king. Your king can't go to f7 because my king is watching all of these squares, okay? And my rook is watching these squares. So you can only go to here or here. Okay, king d8, and then I go back, and then we just repeated. I'll tell you guys that running your king right now will not work because I give checks, and then I keep giving checks. And if you try to ditch your pawn this way, I can just attack your pawn and you'll be forced to defend it, and then we'll go back, and then we'll repeat. So what would you guys say is a better move for white in this scenario? RC6? RC6 is not bad, but remember your rook can't go to C6. Your rook is here. It can't go here. F5. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Okay, so let's say I give you the move. Let's say I stall. What would you play now?
Then this one.
I heard King E7. Yes, you're right. This is an appropriate time to start running the king. What if I give a check now? Where would you go? RG7? Your rook can't do that. Remember your rook moves like this. Okay. Again, you only have two legal moves with your king. It's either go back or go forward. Let's go back is boring because we repeat, right? Let's say you go forward. Okay. I'll check you again. What do you do?
I'll do five.
Yeah. You block it with your rook, and now you promote, right? Right. And now if I try to take, then yeah, you just promote. Okay. However, I actually have a trick up my sleeve. And sorry. The trick lies here. What happens if I attack your rook? What would you do now? Remember, this is the F file. You can't go to C8. Okay. So this is F8.
D5.
RD5, again, this kind of does like the same thing, right? It doesn't really do anything. I will go to put your king. Now your king can't move away to stop blocking your pawn. And now you have to check me away, and then I'll force you. Okay, I'll tell you it's not rook f5. You're very close. It is this idea, but it's not rook f5 because rook f5 you can get attacked by my king. What do you guys think it is? No, it's not a king move. You guys were very close with the rook move. We just tried RF5. RF5 doesn't work. Yeah, RF4 is the correct move, and I'll show you why. So basically here you just play normal moves. Check, right? Now I have to check because I can't attack the rook. Check here, right? Now I can block on the fourth rank. It's a magical block, like, okay, and now I promote. There's nothing he can stop me. And the reason this works And the reason this one, the rook f5 doesn't work is because you can't get attacked by king g6 because your rook is here, right? So the king's not attacking it right now. So that means, yeah, that means that this is the correct move. And this is a very famous puzzle called the Lucena position. And it's basically shows off the main concept of rook and pawn endgames, especially with low number of pawns. Your goal is to um, your goal is to build a bridge essentially with your rook that will stop your opponent from watching these pawns. And I just like to point out some important aspects of rook and pawn endgames. Okay. So let's talk about what are important things to keep note of in rook and pawn endgames. Let's get rid of some pawns and then let's just set it up haphazardly. Okay. Let's say it looks like this. Firstly, first thing, look for open files. Open files, if you control the open files, since there's only like one or two rooks, that means you control the game. If I control this open file, right? An open file is I can move wherever I want on it, then I can get like free attacks on his pieces, right? And he's like kind of stuck. So you want to put your rooks on open files. Secondly, the rook behind the pawn is much stronger than the rook in front of the pawn. I'll tell you why. The rook behind the pawn, even if it's like this, the rook behind the pawn is much better than the rook in front of the pawn. Because the rook behind the pawn, every time the pawn moves forward, it gets more range. No matter what, even whichever color it is. And it doesn't matter what color the pawn is, doesn't matter what color the rook is. As long as the rook is behind the pawn, as the pawn moves down the board, it gets more range. And you can see as a result, like this one, it gets more restricted. Like now it can't move to these important positions. So when defending past pawns, always put your rook behind the pawn. And finally, if you can, put your rooks on the seventh rank. I'll tell you why. All the pawns start on the seventh rank. So there's a good chance by move 30 or 40 when you enter the end game, your opponent hasn't moved many of his pawns off the seventh rank. So my teacher used to call this like the vital line or vital column, I guess is a good translation. And it's basically saying that if you get your rooks onto this file, then you get to control. It's so oppressive, right? You just take all his pawns, and you can get a large advantage by having rooks on the seventh rank because pawns are still here. Okay. Do you get it? Because the pawns are still on, sorry, a bunch of pawns will still be on their starting squares. So if you can get rooks onto the seventh rank, that means you can attack them all for basically free. And yeah, so let's see an example here. So oops. Let's say the position looked a bit like, let me mess it up a bit. Let's say the position looked a bit like this. Like this. Sure. Okay. As white, I'll tell you that white has a major advantage right now in this position. If not, he's just straight up winning. So what would you do to gain a large advantage in this game? Just some positional ideas. I don't need concrete moves. That's fine. Just tell me like ideas of what you're gonna do. RD2. Okay, that's a good start. So let's say I do like this. I'm gonna go like this to try and stop you from getting onto my seventh rank.
I'll do one. I'll do one.
Okay, yep. RD1, you double your rooks. Let's say I try and stop you from going there. What do you do?
I'll do it.
Yep, RD8. And then the thing is you just put your rooks on the eighth rank. And that's why this like open file is so oppressive. You can see from Black's perspective, all of his rooks are locked up. But from White's perspective, he has so much space because he can do whatever he wants. Right. So that's what's really good about these rooks. That's why you should always take the open file. Let's say I don't let you go to the bottom rank. Let's say I really don't want to let you go to the bottom rank. Um, what would you play now? Let's say I go like this.
I'll do seven. I'll do seven.
Yeah, RD7. And then you put your rooks on the seventh rank, and then you basically take everything. Okay? And yeah, so that's basically the essence of rook endgames. You want to when there's a lot of pawns, you want to make sure that you have like control over seventh rank and open files. And always make sure that your rook is more active than your opponent's. So if you can get rooks behind pawns, that's really good. Because pawns, they can only support stuff forward, right? So it's much easier for a rook to take like pawns like this than it is for it to come here and start taking pawns like that. Okay, so you want to have your rooks behind pawns almost always. That would be great. And yeah, so I'll talk about last week's homework now. I think in the interest of time, I'll just show you guys the answers and then we can call it a day. Okay, so this was question one. Question one is find the best move. Or I guess most of the questions are find the best move. Um, if you give me a second. Okay, so the best move for white in this scenario is to play b5. b5, what this does is number one, let's say black doesn't move, you're threatening to go c6. What c6 does is if you take, I take this pawn, okay? If you don't take, if you push, then I'll take this pawn, I'll go. And if you take this pawn, I take this pawn. So basically, no matter what, I have a breakthrough, and my pawn is always going to promote first before your pawn. And that's why b5 wins. And if you take me here, I'm going to go c6. And then if you take me again, then I'll go a6, and then I'll win. It's quite similar to the other position. Let's see. The next one is like this, where you have pawns like this. The correct answer here is h6. What h6 does is you're threatening to go g6. g6, the king cannot catch up because I will take on h7. And then notice how my h6 pawn prevents black's king from going back to g7. And then I will queen on h8 on the next move. There's nothing black can do to stop it. If I were going to go g6 right now, black could go king f6, so that would stop it. That's why we go h6 first. If black tries to go around, it doesn't work. You promote, okay? Let's see. We have two pawns in question three. Question three, it goes like this. The goal is to find out how we win. So our goal, we want to promote with check. So we do a pawn race against black, but we promote with check. And then let's say black tries to protect his pawn. Then we can just put our queen in front of it and then promote our other one and then win. Very simple, okay? Let's see. And then we have like this. This is our next position. So our thing here is we're trying to justify why connected pass pawns are better. So we're going to go f5 because now we do something like this. We go f5 and then his king has to stay around this pawn while we can go we can go take this one. And then we're going to go come back. And then we're going to go force him off his own pawn. And then we're going to take his pawn. And then we're going to win the pawn endgame because we have two pawns for his one. And then if you'll see here, we're able to queen, and then we win the game. Okay, so that was question 4. Question 5 looks like this. Sorry, it's glitching a bit right now, but it's fine. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Question 6 looks like this. This one is opposition. We take opposition, and then he has to move away, and then we can start chopping on his pawns. That's basically the entire problem. Next one is just a king versus king and pawn. Remember, again, we take opposition, and then he can't get out of opposition, so then we win. And then if he ever tries this, we have the always take opposition, if you guys remember. Remember, always, always, always take opposition. And then pawn, king and pawn in games are easy draws if you have opposition. And it's very powerful. Okay. The next position is Zugzwang. That's the concept that's trying to be tested. Zugzwang. So our goal is we want to eat this pawn. So we don't want to give him any buffer moves. So we're going to take his buffer move first by playing h4. You can do whatever he wants. It doesn't really matter. We're going to attack it, and then we're going to play c3. Now, you'll notice Black's king has to move away from the protection of his pawn. We're going to take it. We're going to make a passed pawn, and then we're going to win the game by ditching the passed pawn and going to take this one. And I'll give you guys an example playthrough. Here, and then we go run for the h pawn. And then he almost gets there in time, but not really. And now we can stop him from getting the h pawn, and it'll queen. And sorry, it'll queen, and we win the game. Okay. And our final problem is the reti position. So unfortunately, I would really love to test you guys on this one, but unfortunately, I will just have to show you the answer. Yeah. So I'm not sure if yeah, I'm fairly certain we didn't test this. But what this does, sorry, we didn't go over this last class. But what the position is, you can see this is it's in the manual of pawn endings. It's very, very famous. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to draw. But if you'll notice, Black's pawn is so far ahead of White's king, whereas White's pawn is very clear. The Black king is very clearly in the square of White's pawn, whereas Black's pawn is very clearly, sorry, White's king is very clearly out of Black's square. So what we're going to do is we're going to do two things at once. We're going to chase his pawn. If he starts running, then we can go close to our pawn, and then we threaten to promote. And here we promote with check, and this works. If he tries to chase us, again, we can promote with check. That's good. So it's just like we threaten two things. If he tries even if he goes close one step, we just ignore him. And then even if he keeps running, we can get to our pawn in time, and then we can promote in time, which is really good. And finally, the last scenario is if he just decides to take it. So we're gonna, and then if he'll take 2 moves to take it, but in those 2 moves, we'll have caught up to his pawn, and then we'll be able to take it. And that's a draw. Okay, everyone? So yeah, so those are the solutions for last homework's last class's homework, which is like a long time ago. Again, if you guys have any questions or any like problems, this week's lecture will be posted under this YouTube channel, Ask Chess Questions, or you can look up the name here. Okay. If you have any questions across any of the classes, or if you're unsure about anything, just leave a comment. I'll get a notification here, and then I'll answer your question in the comments or in the next class. Okay. So don't hesitate to ask, because I know it's been a while and we probably maybe like unclear about some things. So yeah, just don't hesitate to ask me any questions you have. Otherwise, other than that, I think that is it for today's lesson. Yeah, so hopefully you guys have a good rest of your day. Yeah, I'll see you guys next week, hopefully. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye. Good night.